In this video, we're going to take a closer look at using JUnit Assertions. So let's go in and write a test. I have the index controller up, and we can see that this has two methods. I'm going to clean that up a little bit and expand this out. So we have two methods. The controller would normally be returning back a view name, and if we were using Spring, we'd be mapping some type of URL here. So very simple methods. They're not very smart, but they're a perfect thing for us to write a test on and demonstrate the use of assertions. So I'm going to come into IntelliJ, and I'm going to hit Option Enter. So after hitting Option Enter, I can come to Create Test, and you can see here the dialog. I'll get that centered for us. So it's giving us a name, a package, and I'm going to check the before, create the setup, and then we'll create test methods for both of these. So I'll say OK, and yes, we'll add that into Git. And you can see down the bottom right corner, I am on the assertions branch. So now I'm going to say index controller, just call that controller. And in the setup method, I will create that controller. So remember that before each is going to be running before each of those test methods. And let's come in here, and now I can run the test and say that my tests are all in the green because they're not testing anything right now. Now I can come up here and say insert equals, and it's always expected, followed by the actual. So we're going to say controller.index. So that's one way of writing it. Now I'm just going to copy this. Normally I wouldn't do this in a real test, but I want to give you the example here and say wrong view returned. And let me demonstrate this real quick. So I'm going to just put a D there, and then we'll run the test. And we can see that I get my error message here, wrong view return. So these little messages can be very, very handy. So I'm going to fix that. And now let's show you a different technique. You can say assert true. And now I can pass in a function there and say equals controller, and get our oops handler. Now another technique that we can use is do a comma. And let's say I had some expensive method that I wanted to use to generate a message. I could do that in a lambda. Say so now this is taking in a lambda expression, and this is a feature of JUnit to take in a lambda expression. So if you had something that was expensive to generate that message, you could put it into a lambda expression, and that is only going to get evaluated in a failure condition. So a little performance tip. So let's go ahead and run that. We can see that we'll execute, and I get a failure, and you can see that's some expensive message. Clear that space there. And I'm going to copy that over, get this guy passing. So you can see that. And now let's also, like I said, a lot of these methods are overloaded. So I can do this up here and also do so again, I'm saying there, make me only if you need to, and I'll show a failure of that real quick. So another expensive message, make me only if you have to. So that is only getting evaluated in a failure condition. So if I take away that failure, and I'll run all my tests now, and what's happening here is everything runs, and these lambda expressions, they get evaluated lazily, so that they're not picked up at runtime at all until a failure condition. Then that code is executed. So if you had something that's generating or joining a lot of things together that's expensive for whatever reason, you can use these expressions. Most of the time you are going to be using this. It is nice to provide a meaningful message so that your output looks better. When there are failures, it helps your troubleshooting, speeds things up a little bit. And then be aware we have different implementations, and these assert methods within JUnit are overloaded, so you do have a number of options to work with those. That's why I suggested getting familiar with the assertion API for JUnit.